The crystal chandelier above the Stellar Majesty's main lounge cast prismatic rainbows across the polished titanium floors, where Kira Chun moved with practiced grace between the alien passengers. Her white uniform, designed to signal her soft class status, bore the subtle servitude markings that made her invisible to the wealthy travelers sipping their exotic cocktails. "Another Zephyrian nectar, Ambassador?" she asked the insectoid diplomat, her voice carrying the perfect blend of deference and warmth that had taken her 3 years to perfect. The ambassador's compound eyes barely registered her presence as one of his 4 arms waved dismissively toward his empty glass. Kira's fingers traced the delicate silver bracelet on her wrist to observers. Another piece of human ornamentation. In reality, the innocent jewelry contained enough compressed plasma to level a city block. Her massage oils, carefully arranged in decorative bottles along the service card, were military-grade combat stimulants that could enhance human reflexes by 400%. The Galaxy's classification system had one fatal flaw. They genuinely believed humans were incapable of deception. The cruise ship represented everything wrong with galactic society. Korthic mining barons lounged in pools of liquid methane, while their human attendants maintained perfect smiles despite breathing apparatus that barely functioned. Viridian aristocrats played games of chance with stakes that could feed human colonies for years, occasionally tossing credits at the soft entertainment like feeding animals at a zoo. "Tell me, little soft one," rumbled a massive hegemony general, his scarred exoskeleton gleaming like polished obsidian, "do your people ever dream of fighting back?" His question drew laughter from nearby passengers. The very idea was absurd. Kira's smile never wavered, though her hand instinctively moved toward the massage oil, labeled lavender relaxation. Beneath that label lay enough neurotoxin to drop a hegemony warrior in seconds. "Oh no, General Thax," she replied sweetly. "We humans find our greatest joy in service. Violence is so messy." The general's mandibles clicked in amusement. "Truly, the soft class exists only to serve their betters. Your Earth's surrender decades ago proved that much." He gestured grandly with one of his 4 arms. "Though I sometimes wonder if we were too merciful, allowing your species to survive at all." As Kira refilled his drink, she memorized the tactical display visible on his personal datapad. Troop movements, supply lines, weakness in the hegemony's outer defenses, all cataloged with the precision of a trained operative. Her neural implant, disguised as a simple translation device, recorded everything for later transmission to the network. The ship's intercom crackled to life. "Attention passengers. We are approaching the Kronos Nebula. Please enjoy the spectacular views from our observation decks." Kira's pulse quickened. The nebula provided perfect cover for the electromagnetic interference that would mask what was coming. She began collecting glasses with methodical efficiency, her movements carrying her toward the emergency stations. 23 other soft humans worked throughout the ship: servers, entertainers, maintenance staff. All of them carried the same innocent smile, the same submissive posture. None of the passengers suspected that each one was a highly trained operative, weapons of war disguised as gentle servants. The first explosion rocked the ship just as Kira reached the emergency medical kit. Red alerts began flashing as the artificial gravity fluctuated. Through the massive viewports, sleek hegemony attack vessels materialized from the nebula's swirling gases, their weapon arrays already charging. "Hegemony Patrol," someone screamed. "They're here to purge the soft class." As panic erupted around her, Kira's demeanor shifted. Her subservient posture straightened into a predator stance. Her gentle smile transformed into something sharp and dangerous. The galaxy had classified humans as soft, never realizing that the greatest weapons were often hidden in plain sight. She touched her communication bracelet, sending a coded pulse to every human aboard. 23 years of careful planning were about to unfold. The hegemony thought they were hunting defenseless prey. They were about to learn the difference between soft and weak. Asterisk. The first hegemony boarding pods struck the stellar majesties. Hull like meteors, their drill-tipped noses punching through the reinforced plating with mechanical precision. Emergency klaxons wailed as the luxury liner shuddered under the assault, its elegant facade cracking to reveal the harsh reality beneath. Kira watched the alien passengers scramble in terror, the same beings who had spent decades treating humans as disposable servants now revealed their true nature. The Korthic mining barons abandoned their methane pools, their exoskeletons clicking frantically as they sought escape pods. Viridian aristocrats trampled weaker species in their desperate flight, their earlier arrogance evaporating like morning mist. "Please," Ambassador Vrextai chittered, his compound eyes fixed on Kira with sudden, desperate focus. "You must help us reach the escape pods. Your people, you're innocent in this. The hegemony won't harm you." Kira's laugh was soft, almost musical. "Innocent?" She reached for the massage oil, labeled Soothing Mint, her fingers moving with surgical precision. "Ambassador, we've been anything but innocent for 30 years. The boarding pods breached the inner hull with explosive decompression. Hegemony shock troops poured through the gap's massive, armored warriors bred for conquest and slaughter. Their leader, a scarred veteran with neural implants gleaming along his skull, surveyed the panicking passengers with predatory satisfaction. "Attention all soft-class humans," his voice boomed through the ship's communication system. "You will remain in designated areas for processing. The hegemony has deemed your species a contamination risk. Sterilization protocols will commence in 60 minutes. The other passengers had fled, leaving only the human service staff scattered throughout the ship. To the hegemony warriors, they appeared to be exactly what they'd always seemed frightened. Helpless servants cowering before their betters. Kira approached the nearest shock trooper, her white uniform and submissive posture making her effectively invisible. "Please, sir," she whispered, "I have medical supplies. There are wounded passengers in the lower decks." The warrior barely glanced at her. "Soft class, remain in position. Your fate will be decided shortly." Her hand moved faster than thought itself. The soothing mint oil splashed across the warrior's visual sensors, but instead of healing herbs, the liquid contained concentrated acid that ate through his armor's weak points. Before he could scream, Kira's bracelet expanded into a monomolecular blade that severed his spinal column at the base of his skull. Throughout the ship, 23 other servants moved with identical precision. Maria Santos, who had served drinks in the casino, revealed that her cocktail shakers contained shaped charges. David Kim, the ship's gentle massage therapist, demonstrated that his healing hands could crush windpipes with surgical accuracy. Each human operative carried decades of military training hidden beneath their soft facade. The ship's communication system crackled as Kira commandeered a fallen warrior's equipment. "Network Alpha, this is Chrysalis Prime. The masquerade is ended. Reveal phase initiating." "Confirmed, Chrysalis Prime," came the reply from 23 voices. "Blades are drawn." The hegemony's tactical advantage dissolved like sugar in acid. Their warriors, trained to fight other armored opponents, found themselves facing enemies they couldn't properly perceive. Humans moved through the ship's service corridor's passages, too small for armored troops, but perfectly sized for infiltrators, who had mapped every inch of the vessel. General Thax, the same warrior who had mocked human weakness hours earlier, watched his elite forces fall to what appeared to be kitchen staff armed with cleaning supplies. His mandibles clicked in confused rage as he realized the truth. Every human he dismissed as harmless had been cataloging his weaknesses, mapping his defenses, preparing for this moment. "Impossible," he snarled into his communicator. "There. Soft class. They can't fight. Kira's voice emerged from the ship's speakers, no longer carrying the submissive tone he remembered. General, you made a fundamental error. You confused soft with weak, gentle with helpless. We've been at war for 30 years. The only difference is that now we're fighting openly. The luxury liner's elegant corridors became a battlefield where the rules of engagement had been rewritten. Hegemony warriors, bred for straightforward combat, found themselves outmaneuvered by opponents who had spent decades perfecting the art of appearing harmless while sharpening their blades. The galaxies classification system had doomed them all. They had never learned to see humans as they truly were. The ship's central database core hummed with activity as Kira's fingers danced across the holographic interface. Around her, the battle continued to rage, but the hegemony's confusion was growing more pronounced with each passing minute. Their tactical algorithms, designed to fight conventional opponents, couldn't process enemies who struck from shadows and vanished into service corridors. Maria, status report. Kira spoke into her communication device while simultaneously downloading terabytes of classified intelligence. Casino level secured, came the reply. David's team has neutralized the engine room garrison. The hegemony's reinforcements are trapped in the main corridors. They can't fit through the maintenance shafts. Kira smiled grimly. The ship's original designers had never considered that the service areas might become tactical advantages. Every human aboard had spent years memorizing layouts, understanding sight lines, identifying choke points that larger species couldn't navigate. The database revealed the true scope of their operation. The Stellar Majesty wasn't just a luxury cruise ship. It was a mobile intelligence gathering platform. For 5 years, it had ferried the galaxy's elite through space while human servants documented their conversations, copied their data, and mapped their defensive networks. My God, whispered Chen Lu, the ship's supposed entertainment coordinator, as she accessed the files. Look at this. We've been inside their command structure for decades. The holographic display showed a vast network spanning thousands of star systems. Human refugees who had escaped Earth's fall were actually deep cover operatives. The domestic servants in hegemony households were intelligence officers. The agricultural workers on outer colonies were saboteurs. Every soft human in the galaxy was connected to a resistance network that had been operating under the aliens' notice for 30 years. General, Dax's voice echoed through the ship's corridors, his earlier confidence replaced by desperate fury. Impossible. Our classification systems are perfect. Humans tested as completely nonviolent. Your brain patterns showed no capacity for strategic thinking. General, Kira replied, her voice carrying throughout the ship, we've been acting for 3 decades. Every personality test, every psychological evaluation, every biological scan, we told you exactly what you wanted to hear. You needed to believe we were harmless, so we became harmless. You needed servants, so we became servants. You needed to feel superior, so we made you feel superior. The truth was more elegant than any military strategy. Humanity had faced extinction and chosen adaptation over destruction. When the galaxy's united fleets had arrived at Earth, humanity had already made their choice. They would appear to surrender while actually infiltrating. The fall of Earth was theater. Kira continued, her fingers still extracting data from the ship's core systems. A performance designed to convince you that we were broken. We evacuated our best and brightest, scattered them across the galaxy as refugees, and began the longest reconnaissance mission in human history. The hegemony warriors were beginning to understand the scope of their miscalculation. Every human they had dismissed, every servant they had ignored, every soft worker they had exploited, all of them had been gathering intelligence, mapping weaknesses, preparing for this day. Your domestic staff know your security codes, Kira announced. Your agricultural workers understand your supply chains. Your entertainment providers have recorded your private conversations. Your massage therapists have mapped your anatomical vulnerabilities. We've been inside your society so long that we know it better than you do. The ship's lights flickered as explosions echoed through the lower decks. But these weren't random acts of violence. They were surgical strikes against specific systems, guided by years of careful study. The humans weren't just fighting back. They were dismantling the ship's defenses with clockwork precision. All teams, prepare for data transmission, Kira ordered. The communication window opens in 30 seconds. The files they had gathered would be transmitted to every human cell in the galaxy. Military installations, government databases, economic centers, all of them had been infiltrated by humans who appeared to be nothing more than service workers. The galaxy's classification system had been their downfall, making them behind. The greatest intelligence operation in history. As the transmission began, Kira felt a moment of profound satisfaction. They had played the longest game possible, sacrificing their pride and their identity to become something their enemies couldn't perceive. Dangerous. The galaxy thought humans were soft. They were about to learn that the softest silk could be woven into the strongest rope. The transmission pulse erupted from the stellar majesty like a stone thrown into still water. Ripples of encrypted data spreading across the galaxy at faster than light speeds. On 1,000 worlds in 10,000 installations, human servants received the signal and began to move. On the hegemony capital world of Cronus Prime, a domestic worker named Sarah Chun, who had spent 12 years preparing meals for Admiral Vexkai, calmly walked to his personal safe and began entering the security codes she had memorized from watching his clawed fingers dance across the lock panel each morning. The safe contained battle plans for the next phase of soft class elimination. Aboard the mining station Epsilon 7, agricultural specialist Marcus Wong finished his shift in the hydroponic bays, then made his way to the reactor control room. For 8 years, he had cultivated vegetables and maintained the careful facade of a simple farmer. Now his degree in nuclear engineering, hidden for nearly a decade, would prove far more valuable than his crops. The scope of the operation was staggering. Every major military installation, every government complex, every economic center in the galaxy had been infiltrated. The humans hadn't just been gathering intelligence, they had been positioning themselves to strike simultaneously at the heart of galactic civilization. Status reports coming in, announced David Kim, his massage therapist's calm demeanor now replaced by the crisp efficiency of a military coordinator. 73% of primary targets have been secured. The hegemony's communication network is compromised. Their supply lines are cut. Kira watched the tactical display with grim satisfaction. The galaxy's rigid caste system had been their ultimate weakness. Species were classified by their perceived capacity for violence and strategic thinking. Humans, having tested as soft, were automatically assigned to service roles throughout the galaxy. No one had considered that this might be intentional. The beauty of it, she murmured, studying the cascade of confirmed objectives, is that we told them exactly what they wanted to hear. Every psychological evaluation, every intelligence test, every biological scan, we gave them data that confirmed their prejudices. The resistance network had been built on a foundation of perceived weakness. Human children were raised to fail. Aptitude tests in specific ways, to show emotional responses that registered as non-aggressive, to demonstrate cognitive patterns that appeared simple and docile. An entire generation had been trained to appear harmless while secretly preparing for war. General, Thax's voice crackled through the ship's communication system, his earlier arrogance replaced by desperate confusion. This cannot be real. Our xenopsychologists spent decades studying human behavior. You tested as completely incapable of long-term strategic planning. General, Kira replied, her voice carrying the patience of someone explaining basic concepts to a child. We've been planning this for longer than your species has had interstellar flight. The moment we detected your scouts approaching Earth, we knew we had two choices. Fight a war we couldn't win, or fight a war you couldn't see. The ship's main viewport showed the hegemony attack fleet hanging motionless in space, their commanders receiving reports from across the galaxy. Every strategic asset they had depended on was compromised. Their slaves had become their masters. Their servants had become their executioners. Earth's defeat was performance art, Kira continued. We evacuated our military leadership, our scientists, our best strategic minds. Then we put on a show of broken resistance that convinced you we were finished. You needed to believe we were weak, so we became weak. You needed to feel superior, so we made you feel superior. The holographic display showed the true scope of humanity's sacrifice. An entire species had willingly accepted slavery, humiliation, and exploitation for 30 years. They had allowed themselves to be seen as inferior, knowing that invisibility was the perfect camouflage for the greatest military operation in galactic history. We studied you, Kira said, her fingers dancing across the control interface. Every weakness, every blind spot, every prejudice. We learned your languages, your customs, your psychology. We became what you expected us to be, and in doing so, we became what you couldn't defend against. The ship's lights dimmed as power was diverted to the transmission arrays. The second wave of data packets was about to launch not intelligence this time, but activation codes. Across the galaxy, human operatives who had maintained their cover for decades would finally reveal themselves. Asterisk, asterisk. The final transmission cascaded across the galaxy like a supernova of revelation. From the core worlds to the outer rim, a carefully constructed illusion of human weakness shattered in a matter of minutes. The galaxy's communication networks, already compromised by decades of infiltration, carried the news at light speed. The soft class had been a lie. On Kronos Prime, Admiral Vex Guy stared at his household servant Sarah Chun as she stood in his command center, her hands steady on the controls of his planetary defense grid. 30 years, she said softly, her voice carrying none of the deference he had grown accustomed to. 30 years of preparing your breakfast, cleaning your quarters, and listening to your strategic briefings. Did you know you talk in your sleep, Admiral? Across the galaxy, the revelation was playing out in identical scenes. Servants became commanders, laborers became saboteurs, entertainers became intelligence operatives. The classification system that had defined galactic society for centuries crumbled in the face of humanity's greatest deception. Aboard the Stellar Majesty, General Thax found himself facing a truth that his warrior's mind struggled to process. The humans he had dismissed as harmless were systematically dismantling his forces with surgical precision. Every tactical advantage his species had developed over millennia of warfare was useless against enemies who had spent decades learning to exploit weaknesses that warriors never considered. This is madness, he snarled, his mandibles clicking in frustrated rage. Your species lacks the neural architecture for complex strategic thinking. Our scientists proved this. Kira's laugh was soft and infinitely dangerous. General, your scientists proved what we wanted them to prove. We've been failing your tests on purpose for 30 years. Every limitation you discovered was carefully crafted to make you underestimate us. The holographic display showed the true scope of humanity's patient strategy. The galaxy's economy, built on the exploitation of soft species, was collapsing as human workers simultaneously abandoned their posts. Military installations found themselves defenseless as their domestic staff revealed themselves as saboteurs. Government facilities discovered that their cleaning crews had been recording classified conversations for decades. You created the perfect weapon against yourselves, Kira continued, her fingers completing the final data download. Your rigid caste system, your absolute belief in species superiority, your inability to conceive that intelligence might disguise itself as simplicity. We turned your prejudices into our greatest advantage. The ship's artificial gravity fluctuated as the hegemony forces made their final desperate push toward the command center. But their warriors, bred for straightforward combat, found themselves trapped in a maze of service corridors and maintenance shafts. The humans had turned the luxury liner into a fortress designed around their own tactical strengths. All teams, prepare for extraction, Kira announced. The Stellar Majesty has served her purpose. Time to go home. But home was no longer the Earth their enemies thought they knew. The planet that had appeared to fall 30 years ago was revealed as the command center of the galaxy's most sophisticated intelligence network. Every human refugee, every displaced worker, every soft servant had been a neuron in a vast collective intelligence that had been analyzing and understanding their captors for 3 decades. The escape pods launched in perfect coordination, carrying the human operatives away from the dying ship. But they weren't fleeing, they were redeploying. The galaxy's communication networks, now under human control, began broadcasting a message that reached every inhabited world simultaneously. People of the galaxy, the voice was distinctly human, but it carried the authority of a species that had just proven itself capable of playing the longest game in history. For 30 years, you have classified us as soft, suitable only for service and exploitation. Today, that classification expires. The message continued, outlining humanity's terms for the future. The caste system would be abolished. The exploitation of soft species would end. The galaxy would learn to coexist as equals, or it would face a resistance network that had already demonstrated its ability to strike at the heart of any civilization. As the Stellar Majesty exploded in the distance, its destruction covering their escape, Kira felt the weight of 3 decades lifting from her shoulders. The masquerade was over. Humanity had revealed its blade, and the galaxy would never again mistake soft for weak. The war was won, not through superior firepower or technological advantage, but through the simple recognition that sometimes the greatest strength lay in allowing others to underestimate you. The galaxy had called humans soft, never realizing that the softest materials could be forged into the sharpest weapons. The chrysalis had finally cracked open, and what emerged was something the galaxy had never seen before, a species that had learned to weaponize its own apparent weakness. The soft class was dead. In its place stood humanity, tempered by 30 years of careful preparation and ready to claim their place among the stars. The blade had been hidden in plain sight all along. Asterisk.